so I was able to kind of like see all different aspects of the job, and I think that really helped me kind of like narrow down like that this was really a passion of mine and that I want to pursue something like this. So I just owe a lot of credit to this class for being able to explore like different opportunities and especially able to find something that I was really passionate about and then kind of like switch that to something that I know is right for me. Thank you.
Oh, that's fantastic. I think you should be an orthopedic surgeon.
Okay, so my name's Lucy. I'm also a senior, but okay. And so I've been shadowing at the Greater Sandusky Partnership for the whole school year. But I actually did go to a lawyer's office one day, and then I said I was never going back because they literally just filled out paperwork the whole time. But I don't know, maybe Mrs. Henner, your job's more exciting. I just thought it was kind of boring. So I actually really like this one. I said I like it because they would take me out to lunch and coffee every time I went. But I actually like it more than just for that. So what I do is every Tuesday I go see Mackenzie Spriggs, who's the director of Destination Sandusky at the Greater Sandusky Partnership. So basically what she does is she works with small businesses in Sandusky, and basically they're just trying to rebuild downtown Sandusky and make it more appealing for people that want to live there and just make it like a better city. So I actually think it's really interesting because I've never really thought about it. I kind of thought Sandusky was like gross and I didn't really like it. But like now that I go downtown every single week, I actually think it's really cute. So I do like it. And then so for the projects, like things that I do there is one of the first projects I did was a Sandusky happy hour. So I would go around and like email or contact every restaurant in downtown and create a spreadsheet that had every happy hour for every day of the week. And then we put it onto like a format where it would get posted on their Facebook page so people could see what they were doing every day of the week to go downtown. And then I also did worked on their International Women's Day feature. So I interviewed 3 women of downtown Sandusky. One was a realtor, one owned a restaurant, and the other was a CEO. So they're all like different, but they're all like women that have worked their way into like respectable positions. So I thought that was really interesting. And then I ended up getting featured on that too, which is what that picture is. So I think this is really interesting because I originally wanted to be a lawyer. So I was fully planned on majoring in political science and then going into law school. So now I pretty much have no idea what I want to do. But this is kind of marketing. But Mackenzie was saying that like she majored in like math and environmental science and now she does nonprofit work, which I thought was so interesting. Like I never like expected her to say that. So I kind of don't even know what I want to do. But I feel like this was really eye opening for me to like realize that I like working in a small town because for the longest time I thought I wanted to go live in a big city like New York or Chicago because I always thought I wanted bigger opportunities. But I feel like honestly, even though I don't know what I want to major in and I don't know what I want to do, I realize that I like being around people that like I know very well and I like forming the individual connections instead of like trying to make a impact on like people I don't really have a connection with because I like see the impact like Mackenzie and like this company make on like people's daily lives and like that they're helping their businesses. So I just thought that was like so interesting and it's like definitely something I'm interested in doing even though I don't know how I want to do that yet. So
Yeah. Lucy was all determined to be in pre-law, and then so she changed, and that's good though because like I said, we're not trying to get kids more directed in what they want to do before they leave high school. So right now, like just the future, we're just going to keep trying to improve the enrollment. I think actually Dr. Fay, your daughter, did apply to this, so I guess if I want to keep my job, I better put her in. Yes. But we're just continue to make business connections, and but it's going very well. We have 10 stories like this, which is great out of the class. I think the kids really enjoyed it. We're really doing some good things. We're doing some good things here at the high school with this career class and some other things. So moving forward, I think it's only going to get better. I think we've almost tripled the enrollment for next year. So we're moving forward, and I think we're going to see some even better things next year. If anybody has any questions, feel free. If not, thank you very much.
Thank you. Yep. We'll move on then to item B under number 4, which is Miss Lucy Watson.
So we don't really have any big updates, but spring sports are starting. So the first softball game I know is Saturday, correct? I don't know when the other things are, but I know our first track meet is on next Tuesday, and then also the musical is Friday through Sunday. So make sure you buy your tickets because Tess is Ariel, so everyone should go. And then we have spring break coming up, and then pretty much from there it's like the home stretch, especially for the seniors. So that's about it.
Thank you, Lucy. All right, on to the treasurer's report from Mr. Limberios.
Right. So February 2024 financial reports. We're 8 months into the fiscal year, so we should be right around 67% for revenue and expenditures. The revenue for all funds was at 67%, and the general fund revenues were at 61%. I will tell you, moving forward into this month, March, we did get another tax advance, so I think we're right on track for what we had projected for where we're going to be at the end of the fiscal year. Expenditures, we were at 57% in the general fund. In all funds, and 59% in the general fund. Donations for February totaled $1,350. They were received for team leadership and McCormick Student Council. Item C in my report is approving certificate of estimated resources. This comes from the county auditor, and it's based on the tax budget.
But he's like,
Looking forward to some professional development opportunities I have coming up. The OASBO mentoring program. We had our first meeting. It's called Mentor Lunch and Learn. That was on March 6th. It's basically all the mentors and proteges get together on a Zoom, and they discuss maintenance of effort, which is special education expenditures and things like that. The next one is they're monthly. The next one's April 3rd, and it's on creating a strong debt management plan. So we did meet. Me and my mentor met face to face last Friday, and we're going to try to meet once a month in person.
Has it streamed 11 days?
Throughout that time. Next Tuesday, Dr. Tatman and I are going to the Superintendent Treasurer Symposium, and then I am planning on attending the OASBO annual conference in April. So that's what I have for you, unless you guys have any questions.
Okay, we will move on. We'll go through I have next as your recommendations. You need to go through any of those.
Oh, the 3 recommendations I have are just the
It's nice. It'll be
financials,
quiet
the donations,
but like
and
anytime
tax.
I do stuff in the building.
Yeah, unless you have any questions on me.
All right, Dr. Chapman.
All right. As far as items on the agenda, we have the BGSU CCP partnership. So last month we approved the LCCC one, and the BGSU is similar to that. That's the more popular one. That's the one where most of our students attend. Also on there, you'll see that we are looking to purchase a new F-350. That's replacing a truck that was purchased in 2006. The truck has given us plenty of life and service. It's time to continue with that maintenance of replacing equipment as we go. So that comes in at a consortium bid price. So we know that we have like the state pricing to our benefit there. Also on the agenda, we have disposal of some tech equipment. So as tech equipment ages out, we just need the board to approve that, yes, we can dispose of that. Recyclers will come later this week to pick that up. And then for classified personnel items, Rebecca Hoffman, 6th grade teacher, after at least 20 years of service, is retiring. And so at the end of this school year, so we wish her the very best. And we thank her for her service to the students and the community in the district. And then also under classified, we have a mechanics resignation. So he is moving on to a different opportunity. We wish him all the best. We've posted internally for his replacement, and so we'll be fortunate to be able to replace him with someone who has that experience and skill set. And then filling the next vacancy, we're going to work on that, right, Mr. Carter? And then the last two items, supplementals and stipends, those are relatively standard renewals for the spring season and some activities related to that. Other items not on the agenda, I'd like first to talk about, from time to time, different community groups will approach me asking for a letter of support for whatever initiative they have. And so I've issued those letters of support. Sometimes two examples would be Family Health Services. They were trying to get some federal grant money, and so they were asking the different districts that seek services from them for a letter of support. The other would be the County Board of Health. They've been working to get different grant funds, and those letters of support help strengthen their request for those. Today I was approached by the city regarding a request that they're submitting to the state for some funds to make improvements to the boat basin. And so looking at the boat basin project and how it does benefit the students, as far as we do different programming there, from the ice cream social to kick off the year, to close out the year with kindergarten commencement or graduation, and different things that we do there, as well as in the spring. Last year we brought back that whole water safety event where different safety services came and did different activities with the kids from Woodlands. I'm comfortable, sending them a letter of support, but I just want to share with the board in case there's any discussion that they have on that. Next, I have just kind of a look back as far as it goes with operational changes since I started here in the 22-23 school year. So with that, I was coming off the heels of two failed operational levies, and some programming and services were reduced in response to those failures. And really, we've now been operating at max. This is the new norm. And so the challenge that Mike and I have is continuing to move forward, trying to stretch every dollar, making sure they're wise investments, so that we can not be forced by a forecast to return to the voters for new operating money sooner than is absolutely necessary. So part of that work happened last year
Out of
with
executive
obviously the
session
closing
at
of
6:16.
So that generated
We're-
operational savings.
The
as
agenda
far as
just
goes
has
for
the
utilities
general
and those
executive session,
expenses.
and this is
Um,
to
in
do the
July
first
of
order of
22,
business that
so
we are
prior to
required to
my
do based
start
on the
in
loss
August,
of our
we had a
friend
second
and
grade
former
teacher
board member
resign.
John
And
Jones,
so
which
we looked
is
at
to
those
appoint his
class
successor.
sizes.
So we had opened up the
And so it went until last year
portal
and this
on
year,
the website
and we're
and invited
anticipating
community
now
members
fourth grade,
to apply. We
we'll,
will be
get 3
holding
teachers
those
next year
that
instead
interview
of the 4
just
that we
here
had
in
this
public
year.
session,
In
so
August
the
of
community
22,
can
we had
hear.
a director of
We have
operations
a series of
resign.
questions. What we would like
Instead
to
of immediately
do
hiring a
is
replacement, we
have
spread those duties out.
we'll just
So
have maybe like
between
a
then
picked
treasurer and
order that
myself,
folks will go
we
in.
covered
We have
custodial
3
and
candidates
maintenance
here
tasks.
for
And
office.
then,
We
there
have
was,
Jody Mast, we have
a
Brian
stipend
Allen, and we have Gregory
structure,
Marsh.
for transportation
So we will
services.
take turns.
And
Each
as
of
we,
us will ask a question
worked
with our
to move
student
forward with
liaison,
closing
Lucy
Shawnee
Watson.
and reassigning
And
principals,
then we'll take
that
we'll
director
take
of
turns
operations
going
position
first,
fills
so
a
that way
role.
it's a little bit of
So
time to
again,
like think about your answer.
we're
But then at
operating
one point
leaner,
you'll be the
um,
first
and
person
through
that
that
gets to
closure, we
hear it.
didn't, reduce
If everyone is amenable to that,
reduce, fire, lay off,
yeah,
and staff.
okay.
At
Do
Shawnee,
we want
we had 2
folks to step up
custodial
to the
staff.
microphone
One was
so it's
relocated
easier
to the high
for
school, and
folks
she
to
started the year
hear,
by
if that's
covering
okay?
long-term leave,
Um,
and then,
How
the
about
resignation, retirement of that
Sarah? Do
worker.
we want to go
So
alphabetical
that
order?
was lost through
Is
attrition.
that okay?
And the other was
There.
relocated to Woodlands. That was a
Yes,
service
sir.
need that,
Okay.
because of more students
Brian,
and
are you
staff
ready?
in that building, we need
Okay.
more custodial
If you don't
support,
mind
more
stepping up.
classroom
Yeah,
team,
for each question,
more,
and so I know it'll be a little bit
longer
of
lunch
a
periods,
musical
more
chairs
students in
kind
the
of thing.
cafeteria,
But just
things like
so
that.
the public can
Food
hear
service,
and we
there
can
were,
have the
again, 2
microphone
at
there.
Shawnee, and both have been reassigned to vacancies.
Thank you.
Let me know if
Um,
it's not coming
Are
through.
results of
Yeah, I think it's
resignations,
good.
and also
We all
slight
had the
service
luxury
increase
of
at
reading through
Woodlands,
your
again, for
guys'
the number of
answers
teachers that applied.
online. Thank you for submitting
So
and for
those
being here tonight.
Effectively,
We were
the
just
2
hoping that
at
maybe you
Shawnee
could
have been
introduce
absorbed
yourselves,
through natural attrition.
yourself.
for the public.
We
Certainly,
also
well, first
looked
of
at
all, I wanna
services and
thank the
programming,
board for the
and we were able to
opportunity to,
reduce a contracted service provider
interview for the
related to
appointment.
gifted
My name is
services.
Brian Allen. I've
And
been a
she
28-year
was
resident
thankfully
of
picked
Huron.
up by a neighboring district. She is with a
Worked
job.
professionally in
And so that's always a
Sandusky.
positive story.
Married,
And by
5 children.
shifting gifted,
I have
we were able
2
to
alumni of
expand
the
our
district,
advanced
2
courses.
grown children who went
And
through
so the difference
Huron,
between a gifted
and
course
2
and an
children
advanced
currently
course,
enrolled in the
the
district.
big one is that a
I
gifted
work
course
professionally
can only be
as
attended by
a
students
financial
who have been
advisor
identified
for
as
the
gifted.
past
So
30
the IQ
years
is 120.
for a few different
It's more
firms over the
factors that
span of that
qualify
career.
them as gifted.
But that's what I do
Advanced
professionally.
courses, we can expand the
And,
number of kids that are served by that.
I've
They don't
been
have to have that
involved with
designation
the
of
community
gifted.
and the
They
school
could be
system
nearly
at
gifted.
various times
So
in
they might have
different
missed that cut score by a few
sets of
points.
circumstances.
So we can
which
offer
I'm
them an
happy to
enriching and
give
challenging
you more detail.
experience.
as
And it
you
also
see fit.
helps enrich and challenge
Thank you.
the true identified gifted, because
I
now
would
they
say
have a larger group. of
Go ahead and talk to a little bit
four or
toward your
six
community
kids,
involvement,
might
and
be
then we'll have the
classroom
next.
10 or 12. So that's an enriching.
Well, I've
looking to
been,
next year, we
as I
have
mentioned,
already board approved, or
kids
tonight,
in the
second one, board
system,
approved 2 retirements
in the
at middle
past,
school.
currently
So those
enrolled.
have been posted internally.
I've been
and we
an advocate
anticipate
for
at least
children in a
one
lot of
the
different ways,
transfers,
mostly through sports.
to result in a vacancy that we're going to go.
In fact, Chris and I
having
years ago
unfilled this
coached
next
city
school.
basketball, 5th and 6th grade
so that's the
together.
savings there.
I
Social worker
coached
services. We used to
soccer,
have 2 social
youth
workers
soccer at various levels
paid
and
through
ages for over
grant
20
money
plus
through
years.
Bayshore. And at
But
the
I
start
also
of last
have
school year,
some
the 22-23
philanthropic
school year,
and board
Bayshore gave us
experience.
notice that the grant funding structure
I
had
am
changed,
currently
and
on a
those services
finance
would either go away
oversight
or be
sort
absorbed
of
by the district. So the
committee
district, I think, made the right choice
for the city of
kids
Sandusky
and
that I've
absorb
been
those
part of
costs.
for the last 10 years.
But then as
I
we
did
headed
9 years
into the spring
as a board
and the start
member
of this school
of
year,
Goodwill
we
Industries
worked
for
with
Erie and
North
Ottawa
Point
County.
and other districts
And I
to
just
apply
recently
for federal
completed a
grants.
6-year term
And so
as a trustee and
the
member
social worker
of the
that's
Sandusky
employed
Yacht
through
Club.
North Point
So I have
is paid 75%
some experience
of her
with
cost is paid
philanthropic
through this
and
federal grant,
government,
and the district taking up 25%.
uh,
And then just
public
last week we had
works and
the
the
second
obligations
social
and
worker return to
responsibilities
service
that
through Family Health Services.
come with a role
So that's a
such as
service
this.
that's provided to students
So.
and families at no cost to the district.
Thank you.
And
We're
it's
gonna have-
paid through Medicaid billing or private insurance.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it would
let's
be
see,
the
March comes
student
before
would be
math,
going
right?
to the service provider, Family Health Services, being, leaving school or going after school and missing after school activities.
Thank you very much for
or
the opportunity.
weekends. By
Also,
being
I'd
able
like
to
to
provide that service here
say
on
thank you
campus,
for
it
this
reduces
opportunity to
their
come
loss
talk with you
instruction
tonight
time,
and the
and
opportunity
helps the
to
provider
be a part
collaborate
of the
with
school
teachers
system in Huron.
and,
My name is Greg Marsh. I've recently moved
and then
back to
the
town,
other
but I
increase
came
that
from
we
Huron.
did was
I graduated in
counseling services.
2000.
This was through
I
internal
earned
transfer.
my
So again, we didn't
teaching
add a position,
degree
we
from
internal
Ashland University,
transferred.
middle grade
We did
education,
eliminate a
4 through
part-time
9.
band
I
choir
earned my
teacher,
master's degree
but
in
we were able
educational
to enrich
leadership
the
K
band
through
and
12.
choir offerings,
And then I
by
was a
having,
middle school
jazz
educator
band
for the
now
last
offered again at the
15
high
years
school,
plus,
which was
and have
first year
been
there.
involved with
And
education
then,
for the last
what
20
is it called?
years.
Theory of
I
choir.
currently am the internship
Sorry, Tim.
coordinator
Thank you.
for
See how-
NASA Glenn Research
Music
Center in
theory. So those are
Cleveland,
2 new courses in
as
that,
well as the Neil A.
elective realm,
Armstrong Research Facility
that we
here
were able
in
to do,
Sandusky.
and we were able to do it strategically.
I've also had opportunities
without
to
adding
be the
costs
STEM Education,
and, putting people in the right spot.
STEM Education Alliance,
And again, like
working at the
Mr.
College of William
James's
and Mary,
presentation here
and
tonight,
been a part of the MURIP,
we
the
didn't hire
Minority
someone
University
new
Research and
so
Education
he could do
Project,
that. We,
with
the
NASA,
master
working
scheduling
with
of the
universities across
counselors
the country,
and the administration
serving
were able to
HBCUs
make
and
time for
MSIs.
that. And then that program
Coming
that was
from
really,
from
it's not a
Huron,
campaign,
myself graduating,
correct?
I
Right. It was a
participated in multiple
self-created,
sports as well as
identified
the
as a
arts,
need based on input
and
from
then
teachers, parents,
and now
counselors, and
we've brought our
administrators.
family
So
back here. I
really
have a 5th
working
grader at
to
Woodlands
find
Elementary
ways to
School.
provide enriching
If I don't mention it in my
value,
opening speech, I'm also a
benefits
member of the
for
PTA,
students, while
PTO,
not, just
because my
dropping
wife
down more
is
money.
also
To
the
me,
president of the
I'm
PTO
super
currently.
sensitive to that
And with those
5%
kinds of things,
and
as part of the
when we need to go
community,
to voters for
I worked
new
multiple
operating money,
years, 9
it's
years
gonna be
plus
because
at the
the
Huron
need
Oak
is real,
Basin while going through high
and,
school and college.
it's
And
real
have
if we want to continue
board
offering
experience.
great
I'm
broadband
currently
services that
purchased a
Huron
home
has
in
the tradition
where we
of
live in
offering.
Beechwood Cove, and I'm on the board
So I'll
there
just share that kind
secretary.
of look back.
Uh,
Because I
with
think
my terms, or
we
with
do all
my
this stuff, and
opportunities
then
of
maybe
being a teacher
sometimes
throughout those
we
years,
forget things
I
that
had the
happen.
opportunity to be middle
But,
school teacher of the year for our
always
division,
strategic, always
part of the
long-term
budgetary
planning,
advisory committee,
not short-term,
superintendent's
knee-jerk
teachers council,
reactions.
And so
um,
what I
I'll
bring
continue to
to
operate.
this and my first introduction is
Last
that,
week, Mike,
my educational lens. I
there's-
came from Huron and recognized the past and the
Yeah,
history
so
that
I
we
worked
put
with
into the
tech.
school system here,
Video's not
as
working.
well
audio
as
is.
I have a lens
When they
that
said
can
the
see the
vote,
educational
vote
piece
audio.
to bring a different perspective here to the board.
Live's still there.
With saying that, as well as being
All
a
right.
full circle, watching
Yeah,
my
thank you.
young
All right.
student here
Last week,
grow
Mike
and to
and I
be
met
part
with
of the
legal
education
counsel
process that
regarding
you were all putting together. So thank you.
facilities
Appreciate it. Nice to meet you.
and bond levy and those types of procedures. And so a few key items that came out of that was we've talked about the different resolutions that need to be passed. There's
Thank
the one
you
that has to be
for
passed before July 8th,
allowing
and
me
then the second one
to
that has
speak
be
to you
passed
tonight.
sometime in August.
My name is
We're
Jody
looking at June
Mast.
and July
I
for
am
passing
a
those. As
long
far as for
time
ballot
resident
language,
of
we
Huron.
on the November
I
ballot.
have 3 children, my
The
husband and
attorneys
I,
also shared with
and
us
all 3 of them
a
graduated from
resolu-
Huron City
reimbursement
Schools. I myself am a 1985
for
Huron
construction
graduate.
costs. And so
I
he
have
said, well, what
served
is that, right?
with
I
pleasure
haven't heard of that one.
on the
So they
board
explained
for
that,
Huron City Schools
we might
for
be
the
doing
past
things
8 years,
now that are related to
and
construction
also
prior
served
to
on the
having
board for the
funds
economic
through
development,
a bond levy.
for Parks and
And so if this
Recreation.
resolution passes, this
I also
reimbursement
am
resolution,
employed at
we can
Firelands
continue
Community
to do those things,
Hospital
continue to pay
in the
for that.
development
And then when
office
that bond
and
passes
serve on the
and that-
board
those
for
funds are there,
development.
the funds can go
I
reimburse back whatever account that came from.
love
whether it was
Huron.
from the PI.
I've enjoyed
And so I said,
serving
well, what's
on the
an
board
example?
as a board member
And the attorney said,
and
one
would
easy
just love to
example is
continue the
if
work
a school district was
that
to buy
has been
property
started
specifically
and the
for building
vision
on,
that the board
you wouldn't buy that
has
property
to bring the
otherwise. That
district,
would be an example of
up
why you might want
up
this
to the
reimbursement for resolution.
level
You
that we
buy the
need to
property
be.
now,
Technology,
and then at some point in the
buildings.
future, the bond levy
There's
actually
so many
passes,
projects and so many
and you
wonderful
reimburse
things that we
using
have
that
on the
bond levy
horizon.
line.
I just would
Um,
love to be part of that.
And the other
So
example,
thank you very
we
much.
had a construction manager at risk consulting on specific construction aspects of the project. Those expenses could be paid now and then reimbursed later. So that's something that is not on the agenda tonight, not something we're going to do tonight, but something to start thinking about. And maybe in April or May, we would be talking more about doing that. I need to learn more about it. I think Mike does too. They said the one asterisk we're doing this reimbursement resolution is within that resolution, it has to include anticipated total dollar amount. And so we might not be there yet today. Maybe later tonight we will. But right now, as I sit here, I don't think we're there yet. And the attorney joked and said, "Well, you could just say like 200 million, like some crazy number, right?" But they said, it's really best if that number that's included in that resolution is near accurate to what you anticipate asking the voters for. So it could be something that happens the same time we're doing those resolutions for the bond levy as well.
Okay. Just
Yeah.
a quick question. Did they give you an idea of like a look back period or window that you're allowed to look back?
Yeah, so for example, they said, the master facility validation assessment that ADG did, that's pre-construction work that cannot go towards this reimbursement. The land survey that's happening at Woodlands right now, that's pre-construction work that cannot count towards it. So it was really some of those examples, and it's not so much a time as much it's more of the activity. Yep. All right. The other is that the resolution for the bond, PI, and income tax levy. So they provided us a little timeline, but it really, it was kind of vanilla, and it matched up with what we already know as far as that July 8th cutoff. So that means really action in June, and then a second one in August. But really, they said the two items that the board needs to know in order to start drafting those resolutions is what's the dollar amount needed for the project, and then what's the general scope of work needed. So the resolutions can be broad enough, but if we wanted to include things like a field house, a pool, a walking track, it would have to say like schools and athletic facilities, or schools and performing arts, or land acquisition, schools, and so it can be broad, but it still needs to have some specificity in it. And then you know, if we finish the project and we finish the project early and under budget, then based on how the wording of those resolutions are, that money could be used for other improvements in the district. And usually they add like a little like caveat of like or other facility improvements, and then it can be justifiably used for that. Or it can just be held in reserves, and at some point we look to refinance to lower that, either the years or the millage on future collection. Basically returning the money to the voter, to the residents. And then the last big thing that they talked about was the idea of this construction manager at risk. And so that's what this. They shared in Ohio, there's 4 types of methods for delivery, project delivery methods for public schools. And so this graphic has the 4 difference and the sort of highlights of it. They talked a lot about this construction manager at risk. It's the newest method, and it's one that most projects in the last 10 years have moved to. Basically, we would have a construction manager at risk that acts as the board agent overseeing the entire project. So it helps expedite a project. It helps protect us against overages, and they help negotiate or monitor the work of our architect firm as well as the trades and various things. So they said, you know, not having one today is not a problem. They do recommend that one advantage of having one sooner than later is that the construction manager at risk can provide their numbers as far as what they would say is a reasonable number for the project. Now, our attorney said, you know, ABG, primarily 95% of their work is schools, and they use those different formulas that OFCC has. So their numbers are usually accurate. It is good to have a second set of eyes on it, as far as not Mike and I, because we don't do this every day, but a second set of eyes would be this construction manager at risk who can look at that and say, yeah, those numbers look right, or, you know, I'm in the field today and I'm seeing trends that tell me that we should either make this number a little bit higher or a little bit lower. Because again, I think we want to have an accurate ask for the funds so we can get the project done if we want it. So they did say that there's a process. It's similar to the process that we used for selecting the architect firm, as far as we would put out a request for qualifications, and then a committee, which can include up to 2 board members, would review all who submitted, and then we would send a request for proposals, which would include fees and services for up to 3, and then we review those, interview, and then select who we believe is the most qualified construction manager at risk. And the attorney said we pick that person and they start working with us, and then as we move forward, if we're not impressed with that person, we could always pivot at it, you know, at a different point. We could pivot to a different construction manager. So it would be pre-construction services that we'd be looking for support on now. And so going back to that reimbursement resolution, if it's pre-construction services, it would not be reimbursable services. But they said it's a safe investment as far as helping with those numbers and making sure they're accurate. And we're talking about, you know, how much does it cost to build a brand new pre-K-12? How much does it cost for this? So if that's something that I think that's something that Mike and I should pursue and start working on, but I wanted to bring it to the board for discussion and see if there's additional thoughts or questions. And you might have a lot of good questions that we're going to get back to because we're still learning.
What are we looking at cost-wise for a construction manager at risk?
Yeah, so that would be part of that request for proposals. They would spell out what their different costs are for different services. And so I don't.
So they didn't give you an idea,
No,
the
they did
range
not.
from this to this?
No.
Okay.
No. Correct. It's a project manager. Yep. and the idea of this construction manager at risk is at some point everyone agrees to this is the amount for the project. And if that project comes in over and it's because of construction errors, that's the risk of the construction manager. He takes the loss, not the district. So it does provide the district some protections. Now, if the reason for the overage is another factor, like poor design, then the architect would be forced to take the loss. If it's something that we did, then it could be us. So,
Who determines who
well, we hope
do
to
the
not
right
have
thing?
that problem.
Right, but I'm just saying.
But yeah, that's
sounds
where
like
you would
it feels
get.
like a lot of like you didn't do here, you did this. Could
Yeah.
be
If we're in that situation, that's where you would get those people that do some things that are really boring. The attorneys. So yeah.
Have similar projects to what we're starting to look at, and if they utilize a construction manager at risk, and or I see the design build is also it does seem like another layer of people to pay to basically check the homework of the people we're already paying, and then we have lawyers who check all the homework that we're also paying. And I get it; it's $80 million at stake, but it's a lot of layers of folks, you know. And I would imagine there's some statutory and contractual protection that could exist between us and AVG, right? Like there's some things that dissuade AVG from like putting out bad numbers, right, when dealing with public entities, things like that, right?
Right. And I'm not saying I think they're putting out bad numbers. It's just this is based on legal counsel's advice. This is something that is an option for the board.
Are our peers utilizing something like
Yes.
this? Do we know?
Yeah, the majority of projects now use a construction manager. The design build, the attorney, well, he said the limits on that is that you don't get much voice in the design process, right? So, because the design build single entity, they just start running with it, and that's why you want to have more say or control in the design elements. But you need that construction manager at risk to help guide you through that, because it's, again, it's not something that we or Chad or the board does on a regular basis. It's someone who specializes in that. So yeah, I mean, it's a service for paying. You're paying for that speciality and experience and knowledge. The questions on that?
All of the things that you've just kind of outlined, there's no action on these tonight. Right. I didn't see it on the agenda. So you're just giving us information. You're just saying this is something to think about.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So,
All right.
okay. All right. That's all I have unless there's questions.
Further questions?
No, but I do think I just want to clarify. James, you went through the timelines for, you know, when resolutions would need to be, language would need to be drafted. That's if we wanted to go forward in November.
That's correct. Yeah.
There's been, and I just want to make clear, there's been no decision by this board that we want to go or we're ready to go forward in November. And I think there's a little bit of confusion in the community as to that decision hasn't been made at this point. It's just if we wanted to go through, that's what the timeline looks like.
That's
right?
correct. Yeah, that's the fastest timeline. Obviously, you can always slow it down. And I have heard from board members that they feel the presidential election is the best or the most appropriate one to be on. Is, you know, Mike Baird when he was, Mike Burns from Baird, when he was here, he said that's the lowest cost election as far as to get the most amount of ballot items, and everyone shares that cost. Everyone on the ballot shares that cost. I think we know that gets the most voter turnout. And so if that's a priority for the board, then that would be fall of 2004 or fall of 2028. Yeah, of 2028. So, but again, I don't think that's the only decision factor that we're taking in as we're deciding when to go to the voters. We do need to know what we're asking for, and we need to know like what we're looking to do as far as project, and then that drives what we're asking for, and that drives all that. So I just don't want it to be like, I don't know, August, and someone says, "Wait, you're not on the ballot?" Like, what? You know? So, or we're all like working at one pace, and it's like, "Oh wait, we needed to do this really 30 or 60 days ago," and so we kind of missed the mark. Now the attorney said you can always have special meetings, so You could do like boom, boom, back to back if you must. But again, when I think about how we like to be communicative and transparent to our community, you do too many special meetings and people start to get suspect. Not we as in Huron, but any public entity. So again, just laying out that timeline, if that was our goal. And, you know, if someone said, why aren't you on the March agenda? Well, we would have had to know that. I think it was like October, right? So we weren't ready to do that in October. So that's that. Good point, though. Yeah, it's not been decided.
Timeline as we talked about being prepared, if we could make that date. We need a motion for approval for our consent agenda. Discussion or questions?
Dr. LaFay, Mr. Rager, Mrs. Henners,
Yes.
Mrs. Mast.
Yes. Thank you. Item number 9.
So 9A is about first reading of the policy. So these are policies that really, again, these changes are driven by recent legislative changes. Some are wording, some are a little bit more meat, but they're all related back to those legislative changes. Review these with administrators that are charged with those areas of responsibility, and then review them with Ms. Henners, and a first reading, and then next month we'd have the second and look to take action on them. I don't know if there's any questions.
Discussion about the policies. Okay.
And then 9B, it's just debrief from the community engagement meeting. So the posters are in the back. They were hanging since last Monday. They were hanging at the library, so through the weekend. Hopefully those who weren't able to attend but still had interest and wanted to learn more were able to get to the library and just do like a gallery walk. But really, I guess I'm turning it back over to the board to, you know, you were at your table, you talked about your discussion topic, but obviously, like, you didn't hear what the other tables were. So it might be good to do a little more sharing than those brief share out, like end of meeting share outs, and then start talking about to the board next steps or where we start moving.
Can we start with you, Chris?
Start, sure.
Yeah, if you don't mind.
So I had the prompt on the financial aspects of the project if we were to move forward, which would be, you know, what type of bond structure, levy structure, or tax structure that we would use, and trying to feel out the community measures that came and how that sounds. A number of them, you know, everybody looks at it differently. A number of them were somewhat surprised it wasn't higher, the proposals, at least where we're at on what Baird presented and ABG presented. For others, you know, voiced concern about the demographics of our community and how that, you know, could play out if you do all bond or all income or the different combinations thereof. And just as we just spoke, we don't have a definitive way forward yet, but it was interesting hearing their feedback on all of that. And just to follow up, there were a couple of questions at the time, and I pulled down the data from the auditor website, and one was, you know, how many out-of-town people own properties in Huron that would be, you know, paying property tax. And on residential and agricultural, I got 12% of the value for the property, so 52%, 52 million taxable value, and 19% including commercial businesses that are out-of-town owners, which would be 83 million. Also from the census, 35% of our population, the last census was 65 or older. That's all of Huron Township, including the city, so that's how you can really get down there. And 81% are homeowners. So, you know, it's some things to keep in mind as we go forward and the committees that might get formed go forward. But so yeah.
You're saying 35% of the population of Huron, the city of Huron, and the township.
Yeah, it was like the whole, like on the census, you pull the whole township.
Is 65 and over, and 61% of that 35% owns homes.
No, that's just in total 81% of the population.
Of the population.
So
okay.
They pay property taxes.
Okay.
So that's actually, you know, I took it as 81% of the people that live in the township own homes. Okay. So just some numbers there. but yeah, there was an interesting mix. It seemed generally supportive, but wanting to find a good balance of how we table it. And so, yeah.
My table was about extracurricular engagement of students. So naturally, I think this town tends to think about athletics first, or maybe at the forefront when you hear extracurricular. We talked a lot about performing arts as well and supporting extracurricular like clubs and bringing kids back into the building because so many of them are leaving campus for UPB, town channeling, etc. And how that can be attractive and the spaces can be more maybe up to date with the community feel amongst the student body itself, and then also with the community, keeping in mind obviously safety. So many people brought up the Norwalk facility and how that was designed, and then some people in follow-up brought up the Avon Lake High School and that whole complex. Kind of came up over and over, pool multiple times, and then just reworking the communal spaces within the building, like where, for, as one example, where you could have like a space for tables and things in the back, and then a stage and seating, and then a stage at the front. So, a lot of great ideas, and the idea of like a media center or a student center came up multiple times as well. Kind of like if you could dream, if you got your dream of what you wanted the students and the community to have for engagement, what would that be? It was fun to hear. I think mine kind of piggybacked what Dr. LeFay's question was, but mine was more centered around the classroom and how people who attended felt the classroom could be configured in a way to champion learners to go forward out into a career, how the classroom could be configured differently. And a lot of what people shared was getting rid of the model of desks. People felt like desks were very silo producing, very hard to collaborate, kids to be able to collaborate. So they liked more of a model like the cafeteria is right now, with the tables and collaborative learning, sharing of ideas, sharing that, you know, in your workspace, a lot of times you're working collaboratively. You're not working solo. You're working with your other, employees or employers. So that was really good. Again, a space for large learning, an auditorium type space where if you wanted to combine several classrooms and do a large lesson, that there would be the opportunity to have that space. Technology, that was an interesting conversation. It really kind of morphed into not wanting phones in classrooms, getting away from students having phones in classrooms, getting away from, I think people have the perception, and I don't know, I think all the teachers that are in the room and the principals and counselors would know better, but there seems to be the sense that kids are really just paying attention to their phones when they're walking down the halls or in lunch, and there's not community. They're not engaging with each other. And trying to get more student engagement with kids in that collaborative learning. So that's what ours was primarily about. Mentioned I was only able to make one of the meetings due to some conflicts. You talked about how spaces could be used by the community outside of school. That did involve quickly discussions about a pool. It's really interesting, the pool conversation, but especially when you open it up to the idea of a community pool and trying to like think through the staffing and logistics and expense of a community pool, which actually there's really good documentation that the city of Huron did. They did a study back in, I think it was like 2016, give or take, on that. But really, when you think about like tying it directly to our education mission, like a lot of complexity we would be adding to our operations. But there's a lot of passion for a pool, which I do understand. I think there's a lot of opportunity to kind of put the numbers and the logistics out there to just better educate folks on what it involves. Fieldhouse came up quite a bit. And then we just talked about, are there ways even to do like intergenerational learning or collaboration? Bobby, I'm thinking even of your program there. I mean, how many retired professionals do we have in the community too, who may have interesting lessons, right, to impart to our students? And are there ways for us to partner with that 35% of our community and make them feel invested, not just in what can the facility do for me, because we know there's limitations on that, but what can be part of the Huron City Schools community do for me, and what can I do for it? I think we've got a lot of really generous, talented people who look for ways to give back in this community, and how can we make more opportunity available to bring people on as part of our team. So it was good conversation. I didn't hear, and I don't know if anybody else here, I didn't hear any, I guess, doubt that there was a need for new facilities, or like, hey, you guys have everything great here. What do you know? Why are we having this conversation? I think at least there was at least an appreciation that the facilities conversation is long past due here.
There was another aspect that I thought was really interesting. Someone brought up the idea of elder school, bringing in that 35% and pairing them with students and having those people bring in, I don't know how to use my laptop, or can you help me do this, or can you help me figure out that, and just pairing some students with some of the senior citizens in our community and having an evening of elder school. I thought that was a really neat idea.
Fremont Ross does a program like that. They do it in the morning. Kind of like coffee with giants, I think is what they're the giants, and they open it up. That's a great idea.
And I think, I don't know if we're going to talk about frustrations of the evening, but I felt like we were really missing. We were missing a very important sector of this whole process. We were missing a lot of our educators, and not hearing their desires, wants, needs, how they see this building project going. And I'm curious to know how we engage them, because they're the ones that are going to be using this facility day in and day out, and their voice is extremely important. And I think it's really important to engage them. And I would like to know how we better engage them. Our educators, our administrators, to really know what their wants and needs are.
So, I was talking with James after one of the sessions, or before one of the sessions. I was a little like yourself. This is maybe not even just in that area of our constituents, but just we have 10 or 15-ish people per session. So, and we've heard, I think we've all kind of discussed and heard, like, well, the board knows what they're doing, or they know whatever we're going to do. And the truthful answer is we didn't. We were looking for that.
We already had a plan.
Yeah, like we already had a plan or something. And, I was really going into it hoping to get a lot of feedback. And we did from those that came and had really fruitful conversations that went on longer than I think any of us planned at each 10-minute rotation. So I've been thinking about it, and I was thinking about it that weekend that, well, if our voters put us up here for leadership and for that position, that maybe we need to deliver that to them, and then have a conversation that it doesn't mean we have to go forward with whatever that is, but we should be moving down that path. So if we want it in November, I mean, we're 3 months from that resolution, or 4 months. So you know, I was thinking that maybe, you know, we put that out there and then let the process start to go and get that feedback back. I bet if we put, I mean, I'll also just say, like, we're going to do a PK to 12, and it's going to be here, and this is what we want to do, and it's about this expense, and that's what we're going to put a committee together to go forward with. You could probably do a public session and have it pretty full at the auditorium or something. I don't know. And I think maybe that was, I don't know, we were kind of just looking for feedback, how we want to move forward, but I think maybe the community needs the leadership of, you know, why the 5 of us are elected and up here, that here's at least a vision, how we want to move forward. If we back off from that as we get to June, or we back off to, yeah, but maybe, I mean, I know part of this, we need to have a levy committee and a building committee, and they got to start getting those details, or maybe, you know, I was looking at these numbers from AVG. You have, you know, the PK to 12 campus, and then you have like option 2, and we kind of talked like if you do like a 6 to 12, and then a renovation of Woodlands. But if you take those renovation numbers, they're following everything to a full renovation, so it's really big numbers instead of like, well, maybe it's an improved number. Like maybe in parallel we could have both of those things going on to figure out what the real number is. But we probably got to start something like now if we even want a shot in November. I mean, you could always back off, right? I mean, but you can't accelerate that quickly once you get too far along here. Yeah.
I think like not even feeling rushed, but just choosing a starting point is kind of like this idea. Choose maybe the best option on the table right now, or the one that's most sensical, and start working toward it. And somebody has a better idea of how to get more community engagement now. I know we talked. I would love to have an idea of how to get better community engagement. I mean, we can take this show on the road. We can go to the library. We can go to the donut shop. We can go to gathering grounds. I just don't know if it's going to make that big of a difference. We could take this to each school. We could have a time where we engage teachers when they're available at each school. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. So to answer the second question first, I mean, I almost think we do. It's difficult to tell, and so appreciative of the people who came, you know, last week or 2 weeks ago. It's difficult to tell if, like, what that participation number means. Does it mean that there's a general consensus to just go? And I hear you on the. Does it mean that there's like some apathy there, or maybe just a lack of awareness that's really going to, if we don't make an effort to try and kind of put more information out there, that it's going to come and haunt us later. I was almost thinking in my head, if you started to chart out like where are there concentrations of active contributing citizens in our community, like where do they hang out, right? You know, and is it at our churches? And could, you know, each of us sort of divide and conquer? And the beauty of, I think, this board is we represent different circles within the community. It's not like we're always lockstep, same church, same social circles. Is it neighborhood HOAs? Is it certain civic groups? You know, all of those things. And could we start to lay that out? And then, you know, 1 or 2 of us each take. We don't necessarily have to have a full-on special meeting and all of it. And then maybe create some materials that give kind of a very high level, like, you know, I think critical to weighing in on this conversation for citizens is understanding our debt capacity. And not like, you don't have to be an expert on this, but to understand like there's certain boundaries that we're working within, and then, you know, go from there. I would love to just pick a plan and run. I mean, the most obvious one is the idea of you know, taking Woodlands and expanding it to one campus. I come back to what I talked about at the last regular meeting, which is it even possible with some of the physical constraints of that property? And I know that's why we started the survey. I fear about running too far with something till we have an answer, because confused communities say no to things, right? And if we get too far down, here's the plan, and then we have to screech because like there's roads that can't be or then I fear we're creating more confusion. And I really do think like clarity and understanding is like that's all we as a board can ask for. We can't dictate an outcome, right? Like vote yes, vote no. But I think we can make the plan as clear as possible and the ask as clear as possible. And that my fear is moving too quick without those answers, you risk, losing that clarity.
I agree. I think if we're going to move forward with more community engagement, and not as a group, but in our neighborhoods or in our circle of influence, then I think we have to all be on the same page. We have to all have the same information. It can't just be off the cuff. This is what Stacy thinks. This is what Chris thinks. This is what I think. It has to be uniformity. And I don't know that we have that uniform dialogue yet. We need to have that. So we're all talking the same game.
And it may be that the sequence of this, and I fear it won't line up for November, but it may be you commission this survey. It's 8 weeks, right, at the most, give or take from the start, and it's already underway. And the purpose of the survey is to figure out like are there like real estate property issues that would be impediments to moving forward at Woodlands, right, and property that we already own. So the biggest one being vacated roads and things like that are kind of boring lawyers, but can bring projects to a halt. I know you're going to the U.S. Route 6, also to understand the impact of that in that area around Woodlands. So that's to me that's a huge question, because if it's like a no, then we know what our path forward is, right? So that's one. Chris, I couldn't agree with you more. I think the community, they have to be able to envision something. And right now, all you can envision is $80 million, but nothing, And so it is kind of this chicken and egg sort of thing. How do we create enough visualization that this feels real and you can get excited about it, but not so much detail that we don't leave ourselves, right? Flexibility, because we know you could approve a project this year and some things are going to change, right, as we move forward. But I do think that like renderings is something. Tess Humphrey was talking about this last week after team leadership forum. She was saying like that's really something she could, imagine being able to talk to people about our pictures and just those 3D renderings, right? I don't think are huge investments, but give somebody something tangible to think about.
So, some of those things can start happening. You're going to take a few weeks to build up a levy committee, a few weeks to build up a building committee. By then maybe we have that survey, but we'll be ready to go with those committees. Instead of having to have another meeting and then another, and because you're not going to get those renderings until you start putting that vision together from the people that are on those committees, which isn't us, or maybe one of us on each, or whatever, however it comes out. But it's, we need to get the people, and I get that totally. What's the vision so people get behind it, but we need those other, community members to start to help make those renderings and stuff, like to help get to where those, that's going to look like. So.
There are the places that we can get involved with. Not with an urgency for November, but just with the idea of getting this project.
Or maybe it's a survey, and a survey if you're interested in being part of the committee. And by next month you might be closer to having the survey back, and then you have people willing to be on committees, and you form it all together in a month or something. But I feel like right now where we're sitting today, if we keep like what we were last meeting, last 3 days, and kind of how we're talking tonight, like we're going to be out next month at the same spot. And I mean, to even have a chance, I think we need to at least get a little bit rolling. I don't know. I'm not saying we have to be there in November, but if you want to have a chance at it, like, we're going to be April, and then it's going to be May, and like we might maybe have some idea.
I don't know. Getting this going too. That's some.
Are we able to do a survey? Is that something we're able to do within a certain scope? Like, I know there's
Depends
certain
on the
leading
questions,
questions
but
you
yeah.
can't ask, but
You can do survey questions. You can't just have a question that says, "Would you go for this? Would you go for that?"
right. You can't do a polling survey.
Right.
And that's something we can just put together on Survey Monkey.
We could whip one up pretty quick in Google Form. If you wanted it research based, there are firms that do that for you. Comes at an expense, but then it's a little more scientific and valid data as opposed to did we ask the right question? Did we get enough respondents? Is this valid information? So just depends on how much we want to invest in that process, whether it's me and Mike drafting the questions or a professional consulting on what those questions should be.
Is that something that our communications person might have some input on?
She'll give input. I think that's not the professional level that I'm talking about. I'm talking about like scientific research that says you have this many residents in your community and you only have this much response, so that means you only had 10%. It is not a valid study of the community. You would need to get another X amount of people. That kind of assessment validity. And then the questions you're asking are too overly broad or too overly specific that when people give answers, they feel like they're making a choice if they're too specific, and they feel like they're not sure what you're asking if they're too broad. So a professional that drafts those questions.
Is it kind of like maybe I'm off base, but is it kind of like a feasibility study type thing? Like
A little bit, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not to suggest plagiarism, but there is a point where it's helpful, and that is if we could find other districts who've done similar types of questionnaires, you can through a public records request just pull what they did, and then pull what feels relevant without necessarily having to. We don't need to be tied to any scientific polling methodology necessarily. We just want enough feedback to be useful, right?
Yeah, well, I would say that does it need to be scientifically valid survey? No. But do we want the survey to help us lead to decisions that accurately represent the wishes of the community? Then you don't want a survey that gets response here, but then in reality people are like, yep, that doesn't jive with what I was thinking. You know what I mean?
Different than having 3 public meetings or having,
Right. The people that were there and we heard from, we got good information. But was that a good canvas of all the community? Was that a good representation?
whether or not, though, I think there's a certain point where we've done our due diligence and the community, if they want to get.
I don't think we're there yet, though. I'm just I'll throw it out there. Like at 35% of our residents over the age of 65, I think we're going to have to mix methodologies. And online surveys are great. Hard copy surveys are great. I think we are going to have to consider the community people where they are, and whether that's we'll know pretty quick. You show up at St. Peter's Church and you put out, if they'll have us, and you put out like, hey, would anybody be interested in kind of learning where the district's at? Here's 5 high-level slides, right? Like high-level validation study information, high-level financial realities, and then, kind of options. If we're getting 4 or 5 people at a meeting, I guess we can take that for what it's worth. But again, at least we're meeting people, in some cases where they're comfortable being, right? Church, civic club, whatever. It is hard to come if you're not accustomed to coming to the school and being around. It's just, I can see where people might be like, I don't know if, that's my bag to come to a meeting. I love the World Cafe style because I think that small group facilitates discussion as opposed to asking people to speak in front of a big group. I think that's automatically going to rule some people out. But I do think we kind of have to use a combination of, and the only thing I'll say about levy committees is this, and that is, I think when we go to these different groups and we offer up the opportunity to be, if you want to be more involved and more passionate, here's a way to be that way. But I think Where the stuff starts to go a little sideways is when legislators feel like they can handpick by the board, whether the board is a part of it or not. Or it's people who only tell us what we want to hear, as opposed to maybe giving us some different views, or sometimes even a hard time. Like, we should lean into that, because like I'll keep saying, like, complaining about something, still caring enough to let us know how we feel. We should be most scared when we're not hearing anything at all.
Chris, you shared a story with me because you sit on the township with the zoning.
Yeah, the township zoning.
Yeah, you said a couple years ago there was a meeting where like 200 people.
Yeah.
You want to retell that story?
Maybe it was 100 people.
Yeah, okay.
We went to the fire. It was for the Ford dealer. We moved to Berlin and Route 2. Yeah, the intersection there. The zoning commission that I sit on is really just a site plan approval. At that point, the zoning's been done years ago. There's not been a variance filed or whatever. It was this. We were surprised. Like, there was a lot of interest in this, the neighbors and others around. Not even just the neighbors. I mean, there's 8 or 10 direct adjacent properties, but there was a lot of people that came. A lot of passion in the room, but at the end, our job as a board was, do they meet the site plan? And that's where we were at. But it was, I was talking with James about it. It was, you're talking about one, one business that needed to basically demonstrate they met a site plan by code requirement, and we had a room full at BGSU Firelands Cedar Point room, and we're talking about probably one of the largest investments this community would ever make in itself, to put a new school system in, and how do we get that turnout at something is I keep trying to figure out, I guess.
But do you think people came to that event because it was a specific, this is what's happening?
I don't know, to publicize it, they only put they have to mail the adjacent people within so far, and then an ad in the paper or something. And
is it fair to say that most of the people weren't there because they were super excited about it and wanted to let you know about that?
That's true. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it is a little bit like in reverse, right? Or, we weren't hearing a lot of opposition to the concept of building these schools or renovating these schools. But of course, we haven't heard from a lot of people yet.
Yeah, so how do we proceed?
To entertain the idea of a survey, I guess I'm personally am not willing to go give a slide presentation. That you've been holding community meetings, board meetings are open. Each of us individually is available by email. I think every single one of us would sit down with a single individual and have a cup of coffee to give them information, whether we have that universal information completely figured out yet or not. And I would rather not do that and start moving something a little bit more technical. That's
I appreciate that point of view. I'd be more than willing to take on a couple of those meetings. Again, we'll have a pretty good idea pretty quickly if it's the juice is worth the squeeze on that. My own church jumps out at me as better part of 1,000 families there, at least registered there, and a lot of older folks in the community who are active. They come to church, they are part of things. I think over at the Methodist Church, where I'm not necessarily connected, but I think the same thing. I think you said about each of our churches. And again, I don't know all of our community groups, but I know, James, you talked a little bit to Rotary. I imagine there's some other groups out there that, again, really active people. I think aside from building that awareness, though, they will also build the awareness that I think is of equal value, or the more important value, and that is, if you're passionate about, this project, here's how you can become more involved. And does that help us collect not just a core of people, but a core of people that really do represent a cross section of our, community. If we've shown up at a township meeting to maybe just ask for 5 minutes, to let them know kind of where things are at. I do think fear more is more.
Different than doing a slide presentation manager. Like, I feel like what you're suggesting at St. Pete's or what have you, that's really not very different from the offerings that we do here. And it is coming to someone more in their home, if you will, which is obviously has a human element to it. But I guess, can we put a timeline on it then, or can we? It just is so. I don't know. I'd rather get a little bit more formidable plan going, and not with the idea that we need to be in a rush or be ready for November, but just to keep the ball moving.
So, if you're having a more formed plan, what would you see as our next step? Like, what would you like to see as the next step for the board to do? Instead of maybe doing like community engagement or meeting people.
I think because that's similar enough to what we just tried to do, and we really didn't have a lot of engagement. Why not try a survey? We're going to get a certain level of engagement from a survey, and even if that's lower than we were hoping for, still, it would be more input, and we can put more of a timeline on it instead of coming back next month and saying, "Oh, did anybody make a community meeting?"
Try something different.
Yeah,
Try a different
approach. A different approach, and it's more definitive. That's just my suggestion.
Sure. No, and I just wanted to know your thoughts and what you thought next steps might be. And it doesn't mean we can't do both of those things. If Stacy feels comfortable engaging her faith community at St. Pete's, and some of us want to work on a survey, we can do them both at the same time. So, we can agree to do that. To get a survey, to work on a larger group at a different community. So, yeah.
A few churches, my own makes sense, only two, but I mean, I think it makes sense to do, all of our, have a ton of them here and here, but it's just, again, if we're trying to reach people, for a lot of people.
Is this a actionable point? Is this something we need to vote on, or is this something we just can get started on? I guess I'm not 100% sure how we proceed.
Okay, so I heard like survey, so I can work with my Edmond team and others from the district to start drafting questions that we might ask. Because I guess my wheels are turning. First it would be like, who are you, right? So I'm a student, I'm a parent of the district, I'm a resident, I'm an alumni. Like, so who are you? Not name, but group. And then, to what degree do you think Huron schools need to be replaced? So maybe they think like, pick up 1 or 2, okay, or they think like it's a 9 or 10. And then like some of those other like kind of demographic-y type questions, because then when you start looking at responses, you can say, well, if the people who have a low level of feeling like they need to be replaced, they think that like this, and then people who have a high need for a replacement feel that so you can kind of tease some of that out. See, that's where I'm not a statistician, I'm not a survey expert, so
That's the objective, though, and I think that's what we really have to be careful and clear. Is if we're trying to like parse out demographics for like voting or like outcomes, that's where folks get in trouble, right? But if we're trying to say like, hey, we want to make sure we're delivering the right information to the right people the right way, or really hitting on the questions, or really identifying like then I think then your questions, well, demographic is helpful, right? Like,
well, I think for me the demographic element would be like, okay, the respondents that said that they have no students in the district and they're senior citizen kind of group, and they feel that while there might be a high need for replacement buildings, there's low interest. Well, then we need to probably somehow engage those groups to create information and bring them, and also provide them a service, bring them in as some of the things that were talked about earlier in the meeting, so they feel that connection to the schools and they see that value. So, for example, like we have the Woodlands Winter Walkers. I think we might have 3 people that come and participate in that. But is it because people aren't interested in being healthy in the winter months, or people just don't know that exists? We haven't marketed it well. You know, the school play and those kind of things. So do people not go to those because they're busy running their own life, or are they just not aware of it? And had they known about it, they might show up and do that activity. So that's so I guess to me it wouldn't be about like, oh, who's the vote. Like I'm not going to ask, are you a registered voter? No, but like the pockets or circles of populations that live in Huron, do they have that connection back to the schools? And maybe they have a really strong connection and they agree we need to do a total pre-K-12, like the whole thing needs to be redone. Maybe they have a weak connection and they also agree to that. Well, then we can probably keep moving forward with that. Maybe they have a tight connection and they're like, you know what, some of the buildings could last another 10 or 15 years. So let's find a way to do that while we take care of the biggest needs. And then over time, we'll work on those other needs. So the state we're in today, 20 years from now, is different. The state that we're in 20 years from now is different than what it is. So no, I'm not trying to survey people to find out how they're going to vote. I would be trying to survey people to find out what their interest is in that investment, right? So we can talk about all the great things that a school can offer as far as enriching activities for senior citizens and engagement in the community and shared resources like Family Health Services having a mental health clinic, but also a physical health clinic that's accessible in a safe way for the community to come in while school's happening on the other side of that secure wall. So we can talk about those great things. People get excited about that stuff. And then when you say, okay, but now you got to pay for it, they might say, well, hold on a second. Like, I have a limited budget. I have to make sure I can pay my groceries and make my car payment and put gas in my car. I want to help the schools. I just need to do it not as aggressively as what that whole project would entail, right? So then it's like, okay, like we hear what you're saying, and you know, we also have to take care of our own stuff. So if we ask for that big ask, did we get it? And now we're starting construction on a building. Our 5-year forecast would say in the next 3 to 4 years, we're going to have to go back to new operating. 3 to 4 years from now, we might have a foundation and some walls going up, but we haven't cut the ribbon yet. So people are going to say, wait a minute, you asked us for this master project. We see it happening, but it hasn't even come to fruition yet, and you're asking us for new operating. You've already tapped us out. Like, it's a no. And then if we have a beautiful building, but no one to be in it, whether it's structural staff or support staff operating any facility, that won't go well. I heard a story, I don't know if it's true, that in 2002 when the Woodlands wing opened up, they couldn't use it when it was ready because they forgot or under budgeted for furniture, and so they didn't have any student desks and teacher desks. I don't know if that's true or not. Some of the old timers might be able to clarify if that's true or not. But that's something we definitely don't want to be in, right? Oh, we had to cut from the budget, so we no longer have internet and desks for the classroom. Well, it doesn't work. So there's a lot up there, and I think we like floating, right? I think we need to start pulling down some pieces, and then that might bring people to the table to say that works for me, or no, that doesn't work. I mean, right now it's all like large conceptual ideas, large ideas that it's hard to wrap their arms around to even be able to say like, yeah, I like the direction it's heading, or no, I'm not so sure about that. That's just my perspective.
One thing I'm proud about surveys, again, going back to the age of our community, is really making sure that like things reach people, right? And so I get like online surveys are great. It's great if we're going through final forms. That's only going to our students and family, or families for the most part. It's great if it goes up on websites. I have an 82-year-old dad. I can tell you he's not on a website unless somebody pulls it up for him. He's just not where he finds this information. And so, if we really feel like a survey is critical, It may be something that we want to think about, even like a postcard or direct mailing or something, so that we know, again, when you look at the demographics of our community, we are making a mistake if we're not thinking about folks in their 70s and 80s and how to reach them, because our elections, like, they turn on whether those folks are engaged or not.
Another thing is really good engagement on that tennis court. I mean, that's
You know how many voices, I mean, how many they got back?
I can't write all the numbers off the top of my head, but I remember being at the person recommending was being impressed by the amount of engagement that they had.
At Rotary, Mr. Lasco talked about the Main Street survey that they sent out last year, and he said that they had somewhere like 750 respondents. And so he felt that was a good return on the survey. So again, like me, I don't think he's like a survey guru, but 750 respondents.
I don't love surveys, but we tried the community engagement piece, and I feel like it thought we had of the groups that we had shown up, I thought we had a nice range. I thought the teaching staff.
Do we have some sort of plan to engage this? I mean, I get that, like, we do this at night after they've had a long day. I mean, all families take care. Saturday morning was the other option. Is there an option while they're at work to be able to engage them either during PD or something like that?
So they have monthly staff meetings, and I went to 2 of them, and then I had to cancel. I had a conflict with the third, but I gave like a quick just update of where we're at, and I also emailed the staff at least monthly, maybe more frequently than that, providing them information. Now, I'm not asking them to return information, right? So it's not dialogue like what happened in those last 3 sessions. But as far as awareness, I would say generally staff are aware that the board's talking about facilities, the board has this information, and we're not so much talking about renovation as we are about new construction. So I'm looking at the people that are staff in the room. Generally, I would say they have it. Again, I think some might be waiting in the wing for more specific work. I know prior to my being here, with a different firm and with a different interim superintendent, there was some work being done that was creating energy. But I don't know. Again, I'm not going to judge that. It might not have been the right energy and things like that. But
I was on that. We didn't get very far. Like, it was very preliminary.
Right. Yeah. So I'm good with drafting the survey.
You know, Stacy Hartley drafted a survey. When was it? In 2021?
After the last field levy.
Was it after the last field levy? I thought she had some really good questions on it. And she put it out on social media.
This was before she was the board member.
Yes. Yes, it was. She put it out on social media. I think she had copies at the library. But, you know, maybe she would you like someone to work with you on a survey, or do you want to do this?
No, if there's like 2 board members that want to work with me on it, we can collaborate on that. That would be a board meeting. And back, I mean, really, it would be like we deliver the survey out. So maybe in April, we're looking at some results. And then when people hear the conversation about those results, they might say, oh, I didn't do that yet. Let me go do that. So we can get a little more interest. But if we wanted me and 2 board members and others, like Mike and Director of Ops Chad and Julie, and then really I'd want some of our support staff and teaching staff to have some design in that as well. Will bring us the draft, and then the board will say, yeah, these are the good questions, and let's cut some of these, and we didn't think about that. That would just delay those results from coming until late April, early May. So
She did that. is there anyone here tonight that would like to work with James? I don't think it needs expertise. I think it just needs someone knowing the right questions to ask. And I think if you're willing to do it and you're, yeah, yeah, just because I don't know that we really want to wait a couple weeks to get this kind of started. I think we get it started.
I'm thinking if we're doing this and came up with a survey, and then, you know, as long as the things coming back aren't in direct conflict with that, then maybe we can present a little bit more solid first plan, and that's where my head is.
And I don't think you need to meet in person. I think you can collaborate this over email or
Yeah,
whatever.
I agree. Yeah.
But if you wouldn't mind doing that, I would be. Having a meeting and yeah, awesome. I would appreciate that. I think that'd be great.
All right, so my action step is start working on survey with Dr. LePay and Ms. Hartley when she's back, and then come back to the board in April with that draft, or release it, and then we look at results in April.
I would personally just release it and have to wait another month to get approval. But is there a way we can, how can we release it to the board, not for something for approval, but if someone has questions? I mean, I can't imagine that you guys are going to ask a question that isn't, you know, appropriate. You know, I really.
I can think of some funny examples in my head right now, but
Well, I'm sure you can. I'm sure you can. So, what do you think about? So that's going to happen. The survey. Stacy is going to think about engaging people that she knows.
can't we group email out for information purposes completed survey back and
I provide board weekly updates, so I can include information in that for consumption.
What about the educator component? What about the engagement of educators in each building? Is that something we want to talk about and start doing also?
I think any in this room tonight will be helpful. I'll get staff. Yeah.
But I'm just wondering, would it be helpful if a board member engaged staff? And I don't know. I mean, I don't know the comfort level. I don't know the comfort level of the staff, if that's something they would welcome, or if they want other staff members to engage them. I'm not sure how best to approach this.
How about I'll attempt this week, and if I'm getting low response, then maybe I'll circle back, Jody, to you, and then we can walk together on that task.
I mean, we just really want input. We really want input. We want no wrong answer.
Our high school stats team. Yeah, so she can hop on stats. Oh yeah. Great.
Yeah.
So we'll cover the math.
Okay. All right. So we have some things in motion, some action things to do this week. And I think this is just me thinking. I think the biggest question that people are going to have in our community is, what is this going to cost us? What the bottom line question people want to know is, what is this going to cost me?
Feedback that I got back from all the work we've done in the open meetings is that the information people found really straightforward and helpful was what came from there, right? And sorry, but going back to slides, it was the slides that said, you know, here's our debt capacity, here's the options to raise the money, and then here's what it would cost you based on the median house price in here. So when I say slides, I'm not talking about like fun pictures. I'm talking about like laying out. Because again, I'm of the mind, because I just as a voter, confused mind saying no. And so I'm confused if I don't know about something, and I'm confused if I don't really understand the things I need to understand. And I think you know, surveys are great, but they're not accomplishing the objective of helping people understand the things they need to understand. And that's the, I'm just that's the one thing I just want to, and then it doesn't give us a chance to then, and maybe it will, but like then to listen back and say, is there a version of this where you feel like you get enough value that you would support this, right? Or whatever that is. But that's the part that concerns me, and to me that we really need to be checking on this side. Because I'm with you, like, how much is that? Pretty fundamental question.
At what stage in the game do we put so much effort in? Because I think if we're pulling teeth to get them to give us their opinion, then it's going to be pulling teeth too when we're like, okay, this is the project, and here's what it is. So, at what point do you hit the pavement that hard?
I don't know the 3 meetings in 1 week is plenty to you. Like, I think it was a good start, but I don't know that we've necessarily like done all the work, that was enough work collectively for that big of an ask. I think it was a good start. It gave us a good place to kind of build off of. But to me, like, the road to asking people for $1 million in a community this small, it's a long and a little bit of a tedious road, but I think it's ultimately super worth it for our community.
So are we educating them on what $80 million gets them, or are we asking them what we're doing?
Right.
I mean, like, that's what I said at the table, and people said, like, okay, well, how much is this going to cost me? And I had to go, well, which project are you talking about? Do you want the whole thing? Do you want half the thing? Do you want, so where are you at on, I guess that's why I just said, what's our vision, so we can answer that question, right? Like,
I think
okay, let's start with the $80 million question, and here's what it's going to cost you. And now if everybody goes, whoa, what are you doing? Okay, well, now the other one is $50 million for 6 to 12 plus another, I don't know, 10 to 26 million to renovate Woodlands, and you're back to the same number you just said at 80 million. I mean, depending on how far you go, but
it's really not a version where we're still going to go 75 million, right? I mean,
right. So
when you spend it might be
right. When is a different story, but I mean,
I think what I'm trying to say is, you ask for input and people give it willingly, and you do what you can. You put out the website, you make yourself available, emails. I think we're all available in the community. And then at a certain point, we as leaders decide the project, and that's, I think, when you really work to code and say, here's the vision, here's the, and if we're getting a lot of backlash, then maybe, like I think what Chris is saying, then maybe we have to pivot. But
and you said it before too, the chicken or the egg, right? I mean, like, are we selling them on or not selling, but are we showing a project that costs X amount and this is what it's going to cost you, or are we asking them what they're willing to support? Like, yeah.
And we don't even know that we have the land available to even support the
We're
project.
to that part.
Right. So there's a lot of
gather information while we're gathering that information. Why not?
Can we agree to start with these 2 things? And while we're waiting for other information that's out of our control right now. Does that sound agreeable?
The 2 things, the survey.
And if Stacy wants to engage parishioners or people at St. Pete's or other churches and give some information, then
just to be clear, we can. It's okay to speak on behalf of the board. Like, we can reach out to all the churches. I use mine only as an example. This isn't, well, obviously a public school, but to reach out to all of them, let them know that we're doing this, and say if your members have any interest in like an informational session, be more than willing to come. And if there's other groups or entities I'm not thinking of, then like let's add them to the list. But at the end of the day, I'd like to be able to say we did what we could to meet people where they are.
Well, I think our faith leaders are very invested in our school system.
We know they are.
I really do. I think they care deeply about the district. I think they care deeply about kids. So I think that's a great place to start. So we have 2 things going on we're going to be working on this week. James, you said you're going to try and engage some staff again. If you need help with that, I will help. But yeah, so I think we have a bit of a roadmap and some things we can get started on. At this point, we need a motion to enter executive session.
So
For what purpose? Oh, sorry. I believe it's personnel, but we're not talking about land or anything like that. Contracts, personnel. Sorry, I lost my page.
Yeah, personnel.
Will there be action after our executive session? Do you anticipate action?
I do not.
Second.
All right, Mr. Rager?
yes.
Mrs. Sinners?
Yes.
Dr. Lefebvre? Mrs. Mast?
Yes.
7:51.
One steps closer to the door.